My name is Bob Fetterly. I was the chairman of the Pickens County Republican Party from 2023 to early 2025. And I'm here today to discuss the issues that led up to a complaint that I feel was entirely invalid and led to the dismissal of our delegates attending the state convention. The party that is in control now, the leadership that is in control now, will handle the complaints with the state. And I'm not going to get in their way of doing that, but I would like to address the complaints that were made to the state that were never brought to our attention at the county level. So it was brought to my attention the Wednesday before state convention that a complaint had been made to the state regarding how we in Pickens County handled our county convention, and in line with that, our reorganization and makeup. This was the first I heard of it, and I was in Colorado on business at the time. The state contacted Kathy Davis, who is now chair of the party, and she contacted me to ask how I would respond to these things. The problem was we did not have the full formal written complaint, and so we really didn't know what we were responding to. What was alleged is that we had somehow chosen 400 people to cap the event, and that simply isn't true, because the way in which we went to hold the event was the same as every other county, and that is we are asked to estimate sometime in the January timeframe how many people do we anticipate there. And the leadership team, which included me at the time, estimated 400 people. And with that in mind, we went to get a venue that would easily handle all that, and we settled on the Pickens County Fine Arts Center, Performing Arts Center in Liberty, which seats 660 people. Historically, we've never even had as many as 300 people at county conventions, so we figured that would be plenty adequate. When the state asked us how many Form 1s do we think we need, we said, well, probably about 400. Now, of course, they were free to give us as many as they wanted, but we asked for at least 400, and that's what we got. The complaint alleges that the 400 number was chosen by us to limit the capacity of that number, and that simply isn't true. It was not until February 15th that we were told state convention would be on May 3rd. By state law, that means we could not have the county convention in the latter half of the month. So we scrambled to find another place to hold the convention. The Fine Arts Center was not available the first 2 weeks. We asked for help from everywhere we could think of. That included Carla Kelly, who I thank very much. She's the chair of the Pickens County School Board. We contacted everyone in the school system that she put us in touch with, and there were people very helpful, but their venues were not any bigger than what we could get at Southern Wesleyan University, which seats 400 people. And so it was easy for us at that point to simply go back there, because that is where we had the 2023 convention. And all indicators were that we were not going to exceed the number that we had in 2023. So Rhonda Billingsley was on this phone call with Kathy Davis and myself the Wednesday before convention, and I conveyed to her the best I could from a hotel room what occurred. And again, we weren't really aware of any complaints. Nobody complained to us. No one even told us there was a problem. We actually got compliments. But she will address what is argued between the state and the county going forward. But as far as what we dealt with at the county level leading up to convention, our interpretation of the rules, and my interpretation of the rules, is still that you have reorganization, and then you have 5 days to send a certified list to the state. And then you have a makeup date, which we had later in March. And you have 3 days after makeup day to send the final certified list to the state and to each precinct president. Now, we were being told by the state to go ahead and let people fill unfulfilled delegate spots up until 5 days before county convention. County convention being on a Saturday meant we accepted forms up to the Monday before county convention. This goes against my understanding of the rules altogether, but nonetheless, we did not argue that. The complaint alleges that we did not allow people to submit copied forms. That's true because in an email to us, Leighton Gray Smith, who works for the SCGOP, told us the forms were numbered for traceability. And so the instructions given to the precinct officers was to send us a list of names as to who you intend to add via email. We will give you that many forms, and then we expect those forms with those names back on them. With us not being directly in control of the forms, that's the only way we could think of to certify and control the forms. Previously, it's been an issue that forms were quote-unquote floating around and we didn't know who was showing up to county convention. The only people that had an issue with this were those that Xeroxed the forms and they blotted out the number on it. And when they went to give those forms to me, I simply rejected them saying, I'm sorry, I cannot accept a Xerox form. But that should not have been a problem because nobody asked for forms that did not get them. Everyone who requested forms in compliance with the instructions we were given was given an official Form 1. Therefore, we expected all forms to be official Form 1s. So among the Xerox copied forms, 2 did include Neil Collins, and I'm guessing his wife. I don't know her name, but I rejected theirs and any other Xeroxed Form 1s. There were 67 Form 1s, official Form 1s, left after makeup day. So obviously at that point, we did not think there were any issues with capacity and the limits of being in SWO's Fellowship Hall. But anyone that could have exceeded that number, we rejected because if all 400 Form 1s were attached to someone that would show up, obviously they would have a right to be in Founders Hall. So again, I do not have the original complaint from Chris Clark, but what was relayed to me by people in the room was that there were 3 people mentioned in her complaint. The first one was regarding Laura Hinty. Laura Hinty contacted me the day after makeup and said, I have 2 more people I want to add as delegates. My understanding of the rules then, and still now, is that you cannot do that after makeup. And I told her accordingly, I'm sorry, but the window is closed. I have only 2 more days to get a certified list to you and the state. Less than 24 hours after that interaction, Leighton Gray Smith said, no, give them the unused Form 1s. So we did. Laura Hinty was the first person I called to say, you can now have these forms. And my own phone records on cell phone show that I made that call to her. So any idea that I was blocking her from adding delegates is a bald-faced lie. And certainly Chris Clark ought to know that if nobody else, because by the time anybody asked me for forms, Laura Hinty had already been told that hers were coming. She requested 2 and she got them. The next name in the complaint was the Holidays, a couple from the McKissick precinct. I don't know who signed them up because, again, the people that requested the forms were not necessarily the people that gave them back to me. But the reason there were not packets waiting for the holidays when they got to convention was that they did not fill out their voter registration number. And in Leighton's own email to us, all that information has to be filled out in order for them to receive a voter packet or to be admitted into convention. Well, at this point, I could pretty much tell that we had some people that were going to cause a stink no matter what we did. We went ahead and let them in because, again, I was well aware of the fact that these were supporters of Chris Clark, and it was very obvious by the numbers there that Chris Clark could have had 10 more supporters, and there were no 10 more supporters. And so I figured we'll just let these people vote, as I did other people. I let them in, even if everything was not officially filled out the way it should be, and they were seated. So the fact that they're even in the complaint is a little ridiculous. The holidays were permitted to enter, and they did vote and participate in county convention. The third and final name that was on the complaint, at least that I'm aware of, is a lady by the name of Kirby. And I honestly am not sure who this is, but I believe I can recall who it was, in that this lady showed up and we could not find her packet. Now, we're not saying she should not have had a packet. After looking at the official list that we had, she, in fact, attended reorganization. I simply said to her, perhaps you didn't check the delegate box. If this is who I'm thinking it is, she argued, no, I did check it. It didn't matter. I let her and anyone else in that situation in. In fact, when I had this interaction with this lady, assuming I've got the right one, there were already several people waiting off to the side that had similar issues. Two of them explicitly told us they were not coming, and yet they showed up. But I sat them to the side along with a few other people that either couldn't remember what precinct they were in or weren't sure if they had checked the box or not. And as is always the case, there are some no-shows. So I simply told them, please sit aside. And if we get to the start time and people haven't shown up, we will simply reassign their packets to you. That's what we did for them, and that's what we would have done for Miss Kirby. We also, I want to point out, did this for people who were alternate delegates. So there was only one precinct that maxed out its delegate count, and that was Holly Springs. So Holly Springs had some alternates that did show up and some delegates that did not show up. And without going through the formal process, we simply reassigned packets to those alternate delegates. So in short, everybody that showed up that day that we had any record of filling out a Form 1 was let in. I do know that one lady, I don't know if it was Mrs. Kirby or not, I do know that one lady left in disgust saying she was not going to wait. That I don't feel I can help. We had a packet for everyone that checked the box, filled out an official Form 1, and we understood to be coming. So Chris Clark alleges that if she had been allowed to bring more delegates, that she would have won. For one thing, she finished in third place. Leading up to the period after Makeup Day, she brought more people than anyone else. And again, anyone who asked for Form 1s got them. We didn't tell anybody no. All we asked for was a list of who you're going to sign up, and then we gave you numbered forms and expected those same number forms back from you. According to Leighton Gray Smith, we had to have some level of control. Well, the fact is, Chris Clark did not request any forms. Any forms that she brought back would have been given to her, presumably by Kelsey Crooks, Bonnie Hiltner, or somebody else who would have requested forms on her behalf. Not in compliance with the rules that we were trying to hold to, but nonetheless, we accepted any Form 1s on the official state forms. Nobody who returned a Form 1 to us, regardless of who took it out, was rejected. Some that were not held to where we made a voter packet for them was because there was information missing. And again, according to Leighton Gray Smith's own email, they are to have their voter registration number on the form. Well, us not being present, we had no way of telling the individual, you must fill out all these blanks in order for us to make a form for you. There were 3 candidates running for chair to replace me. Kathy Davis, who eventually won, Neil Garrick, and Chris Clark. And they finished in that order: Davis, Garrick, Clark. In accordance with the rules, there is a runoff after the first round if nobody gets 50%. In the second round, Kathy Davis won. But as far as the feasibility of Chris Clark winning, it wasn't even close. She finished more than 10 votes behind the second place finisher in the first round. This, despite the fact that we let people in who were supporters of her, who did not officially fill out the Form 1 exactly as asked. For example, there is a couple named the Holidays that are in her complaint, and they did fill out Form 1s with either her or one of her friends, but they did not put their voter registration number on the form. Therefore, we had no way to check the validity of their registration. Well, nonetheless, we let them in. We gave them packets of 2 delegates who did not show up. And even being that lenient towards Chris Clark's supporters, she couldn't finish any better than 3rd place. There was a complaint that I've only heard about verbally. I've not seen anything written about this, and all my information I have based on people who were in the room. Chad Connolly, who for reference used to be the chairman of the state party until he resigned, I believe the year was 2013 or thereabouts, for him to go join Karl Rove at the national level. But the first claim was that we rejected his son and would not let him in. Well, this is ridiculous because anybody who was at reorganization, this was held at Liberty High School, knows that nobody was turned away. In fact, I don't remember anybody not having adequate ID to be let in. You only needed your driver's license. It was recommended that you bring your voter registration and be able to prove that you had voted in 2 of 3 primaries in case you wanted to be a delegate. Well, not knowing anything about this, I had to ask the ladies who were doing check-in, do you remember any sort of interaction like this? And Elisa Pinkerton, who was working the desk that day, said, I'm pretty sure I know who this is. And we showed her a picture of Chad Connolly's son, and she said, yes, that's him. He came up and said something to the effect of, how long is this going to take? Because I've got to go somewhere this afternoon. And Elisa explained accurately that how long your reorganization takes depends on your precinct. So if your precinct sits down in 5 minutes and says, yep, you be president, you be EC, and there's enough delegate slots for all of us to go, you're done. But some people sit down and take an hour or more to hash it out. So she simply explained this to Chad, and a young lady who I do not know if was either his wife, girlfriend, but that's how it came across, said, we really don't have time to do this. Why don't we just go? And they left. Nobody told them to leave. Then I was told that the complaint was that he had to wait 5 hours in line and that people from his church were not allowed in. This was clearly grasping at straws. The whole event for the whole day was barely 5 hours long, and that includes those of us that were working there, setting up, breaking down, and eating lunch there between the morning and afternoon session. But in addition to that, if you were there, you know that it's highly unlikely you spent more than 30 minutes in line. We had a team of 4 ladies doing check-in that included Elisa Pinkerton, my wife, and 2 others, as well as 2 women collecting funds. There was virtually no slowdown in the line. As quickly as you could present your ID and declare what precinct you were in, you were pretty much checked in and sent to your table to wait for the rest of your precinct to show up. So both complaints were absolutely ludicrous because nobody waited an hour and nobody was turned away. We had a county deputy there who can testify to the fact that she was not asked to walk anybody out of the building. Everybody that came in went to their table if they so chose. He is the only one that I'm aware of chose not to register and go in. So the idea that we did not promote or invite people unknown to the party to attend is laughable if you look at the full scope of this. Going clear back to January of this year, I began a series of interactions with Charlie James. Charlie James is the most listened to radio show in the state of South Carolina, and he was very generous with his time. I was on there 3 times prior to any of this, and then most notably on February 26th, Nate Loip, who is an operative of the SCGOP, and by that I mean he's very tight with the powers that be in Columbia, and in fact, he was down there on the day of convention helping check people in. Well, he was on the Charlie James show just before me, discouraging people from showing up to convention, basically saying the whole process is a mess, it's a bunch of immature people, don't waste your time, wait for another cycle of mature leadership, in his words, to take control. Right after he was on, I was on, and I said, that's the Eeyore approach, where you sit home and just complain about everybody else. I encouraged everyone who was willing to show up. I explained very thoroughly that if you have voted in 2 of the last 3 Republican primaries, you are eligible to be a delegate. That's state rules. Nate did not promote any of this. So the very people that are telling you we dissuaded people from showing up were some of the people telling people not to show up. And then I would invite anyone to go back into the Odyssey.com archives for Charlie James, look up February 26th, and in the 4 o'clock hour, which would be the second hour of his show, Nate Loip is on telling people not to show up. And then I am on telling people, please show up.
Charlie, our young Greenville Young Republicans are incredible. Our Patriot Caucus, that I think is just at a year old now, is doing great things. And so a lot of people are just saying, hey, it's not worth wasting time to engage with these people. And a lot of these people are nasty. There's a lot of good people, but there's just some really nasty ones that have attacked people, attacked their families, attacked their businesses. And they're saying, you know what, let's continue to be relevant in the other conservative groups.
All right. Nate Loip, 4th District Republican Club. Always a pleasure, sir. We'll talk to you again soon. Joining us right now is Bob Fetterly. He is with the Pickens County GOP. And Bob, so let me ask you something, Bob. When is your reorg?
Our reorg is still March 8th at Liberty High School.
Okay, March 8th, Liberty High School. Now, you guys, all the precincts there are going to be getting together at Liberty High School, and you're going to be having your reorg, and then you're going to be going to your county convention. Now, here's the question. Yes. When is your county convention?
Okay, it had to be moved to April 5th at Southern Wesleyan University because the state made the state convention the earliest date ever. It's going to be May 3rd. And the reason that's kind of rude, if you ask me, is there's a state law that says county convention has to be at least 2 weeks before, did I say it backwards? County convention has to be 2 weeks before state convention.
Right.
And there is a state GOP rule that says county convention has to be 2 weeks after reorganization. So, and by law, reorganization is March, county in April, state in May.
Right.
So obviously, by the state putting it on the 3rd of May, they have eaten up the last half of April. So we and other counties that had planned to have the last, sometime in the last 2 weeks of April, we had to move it. And if you had your reorganization planned towards the end of March, you're really in a pickle, because when you do it, right? 2 weeks after, 2 weeks before, you run out of money.
So the county convention has to be 2 weeks after the precinct, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And it's got to be 2 weeks before, or approximately 2 weeks before, the state convention.
State convention, yes, sir.
And what they have done is they have forced you guys to move that within that 2 week window, right?
Yeah, we had to go to the first half of April because they put it on May 3rd.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we had not lined up a place to be in the latter half of March, or again, we would have been really, frankly, screwed.
Yeah. What if you guys had already put the deposit down on the auditorium and all of that stuff?
All that was the case, and thankfully, we have a good relationship with those venues, and they understood. They let us out of it. But I don't know that other counties are going to be as fortunate. But let me just point something out. This is why. So, for instance, we here in Pickens, we're having our county convention in one location to try to make it easy for people to find, to show up. It's the reason I'm on with you, so that hopefully people know they're welcome to come. In Greenville, I would say a bit out of necessity, your reorganization depends on where your precinct is. So your reorganization is literally all over the county.
It is, yeah.
And I heard Mr. Loip. I'm going to do my best to get you to ignore him. I'm more than happy to talk about a few things about his history that people should take note of. But let me just say this: look, whether you like me or not, whether you like Jeff Davis or not, whether you like Nate Loip or not, when you impact the state GOP, you're impacting the party that runs the state.
Right.
I mean, you should want to be a part of that, period. And, just a real quick trip down memory lane here. So Nate was chairman of the Greenville County GOP. You could basically say as or before the MAGA versus establishment rift really happened.
Yeah, that happened right after I got here.
Okay. All right. So I am firmly planted on the MAGA side of that rift.
Yeah.
All right. When Rona McDaniel was the chair of the RNC, does everybody remember who number 2 was?
Yeah, it was Drew McKissick.
It was Drew McKissick.
Yeah.
Okay, what happened when Laura Trump took over that party? Drew got a one-way ticket.
He just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
No big announcement was made. No press release was put out or anything. Right.
Well, I'll give, I give plenty of kudos to the Trump family. They know when to pick a fight. They know when not. But here's my point. If Drew was truly MAGA, I'm pretty sure they would have kept him around. But he's not. He's not there. He's down in Columbia. And if you, South Carolina, friends, neighbors, we are still getting establishment type government in this state.
We are.
Right?
Yeah.
We're not getting MAGA government.
Yeah.
We need Doge in this state. We're not getting it with this. So if I wanted to defend the establishment, I would tell you to do exactly what Nate Loip has just told you to do. Sit it out. Don't be involved. Don't be counted.
Interesting. So, I mean, I agree. And it's just a weird situation going on.
There is a mountain of circumstantial evidence that the South Carolina GOP did not want Pickens County at state convention. And the reasons are very apparent. Number one, In 2023, we were the only county to vote 100% against Drew McKissick. We were and very are proud of that because he has not given us a product of elected officials that meet the state's platform. Secondly, when I was on the Charlie James Show multiple times, I always made it very clear that we are a MAGA, America First, Constitution-abiding county, and we do not care that the Republicans hold a majority in the state. What we care about is the quality of the individuals in those offices. So we are not here to carry water for any incumbent. For that and plenty of other reasons, I'm pretty sure they did not want Pickens County down there. It would seem, if you back up and look at the big picture, that Chad Connolly's son and these two very poor arguments were the first attempt to undermine our efforts to be at state convention and vote against Drew McKissick one more time. Furthermore, it was also the case, it was right here in Pickens County where a chorus of boos greeted Lindsey Graham when Donald Trump had an event here on July 4th, just a couple years ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome United States Senator Lindsey Graham.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, that was what we call ritualistic humiliation, I believe.
Tough to watch.
In his home state, nonetheless. It's brutal, but, to a degree, Graham kind of invites this.
It made national news. It clearly upset Lindsey Graham. And there's no mistaking the fact that his own party in this county does not like him overwhelmingly. In fact, he had an interaction with Rhonda Billingsley, who is now the EC from this county, and she basically pointed out how out of touch he was with the county when he asked about the well-being of one of our former members who had been dead from cancer for more than a year before that interaction. Lindsey Graham is out of touch with this county. Pickens County Republican Party knows he is, and he does not like being called out on the carpet. Had we made it to state convention, we would have been 24 votes against Drew McKissick. We would also be 24 members of the state EC that would like to see Lindsey Graham primaried, taken out. We've tried censuring him twice. Back in the 2023 timeframe, we were basically told not to do that unless we wanted to feel his wrath. There were even some members of the Pickens County Republican Party that were members back when, frankly, Lindsey's folks held control of this party that in no uncertain terms warned us not to do it. But again, we're not trying to pick a fight. We're trying to hold elected officials accountable. And Lindsey Graham has not in any sense of the word held true to the Republican Party platform. So to summarize all the events from January 2025 up through convention, your Pickens County Republican Party previous administration did everything it thought to be right to put on a good reorganization, makeup day, and convention. We reserved a 660-seat venue in the town of Liberty. Had we been able to keep that venue, that would have been more than twice the size of any previous Pickens County convention. When we were forced to move venues in mid-February, and due to the state's actions, the convention then had to be held the first half of April. So obviously we had less than 2 months to work with. We called everywhere we could, and we ended up back at Southern Wesleyan University, where we had been 2 years prior. Still enough to seat 400 people, plenty of capacity given the fact that after reorganization and after makeup day, we had only a list of 333 people that could show up, And at that point, we understood people to opt out of coming to convention. There were people that signed up and said, we do not intend to come to convention. So capacity was not an issue until the state told us to give out Form 1s after makeup day. And this is the only time we started to worry about capacity, because as word got around the county that you can still show up no matter what you said or did, if you've filled out a Form 1, you can go. Then we were faced with the fact that we have 400 forms. All 400 were either spoken for before makeup day or shortly thereafter. And so we had run out of capacity. And in fact, we sent an email to the state telling them, if you want these people who are Xeroxing forms accommodated, you need to tell us how to do it, and you need to afford us the resources to do it. There is no place in the Pickens County area that was available with more seating capacity. We looked everywhere we could. And then finally, regarding this complaint, it very much mirrors what one of Chris Clark's supporters, Bonnie Hiltner, did 2 years prior. In the 2023 convention, we had what I would call a very clean convention. And before Tim Bruce left the room of the convention to take the delegate ballots across the hall, he invited anybody that wanted to follow him to do so. As I recall, nobody followed him across the hall, but he put that box of delegate votes in a secure room until they were later counted. Well, Bonnie Hiltner, similar to Chris Clark, filed a complaint directly with the state, not with the county itself. The EC of the Pickens County Party should have heard these complaints first. They never did. Bonnie's complaint was very easy to dismiss because she frankly had no grounds for saying there was any evidence of corruption or ballot stuffing or anything of the sort. This time around, Chris Clark's complaint is doubly odd in the sense that she used the Bonnie Hiltner timing, but she's also complaining that she was held back from getting more support. Nothing could be further from the truth. Of the 67 Form 1s that were claimed after makeup day, nearly 2/3 of them were from Chris Clark or her friends, and 0 of them were requested by Chris Clark herself. So frankly, Chris Clark should not have been able to give me any Form 1s because she did not ask for any. All Form 1s that were on an official state-issued Form 1 were accepted by me if they showed up before close of business the Monday before convention. We did anything and everything, even beyond our understanding of the rules, to accommodate people who wanted to be a delegate, so long as they filled out the forms in accordance with Leighton Gray's instructions.